All right. Let us pray. Father in heaven, we thank you so much for this day. We thank you, dear Lord, for the beautiful sunshine that is outside and the snow that cleared everything on yesterday. And we know, Lord, that we're here for a reason. We ask that the information that is shared may come from you, that it may help us to live healthier lives, that you would have us to be happy and prosper here on earth. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen. Amen. All right, everyone. We're going to go ahead and begin our presentation. But as we begin our presentation, we are going to start with a recap on what it is that we discussed last week, because maybe not everyone was here. Does anyone remember what we discussed? Diseases. We discussed diseases, but not only just diseases, we discussed what? Common diseases. And we said, well, common diseases, why are common diseases common? Because the term common means something that is known, something that it takes place often. But we recognize that disease, well, getting ahead of myself, let's go ahead and discuss what it is that we talked about. What common diseases that we covered? Anybody remember?
Oh, yeah, brother. High blood pressure.
Okay, high blood pressure.
Cancer.
Cancer.
Diabetes.
Diabetes, there you go. So cardiovascular disease, we covered hypertension, we covered diabetes, and we covered cancer. Now, we're not going to go into those on today. If you do want to see them, then we do have it live recorded. And to those who are actually on the live recording as well, you can go back to the page and see that as well also. But as we go through, we've learned that many diseases can be avoided. Many diseases can be avoided. So if diseases can be avoided, should they really be common? I don't know anybody, if I asked, by show of hands, that wants a disease. But why is it that they're so common? And if it can be avoided, how come we don't know about it? It says that your genetics loads the gun. However, your lifestyle pulls the trigger. There's some things that I may be predispositioned to, as heredity and genes and things of that nature, that actually, like if high blood pressure runs in my family or certain things happen. But how I live my life determines whether those traits that I've been carried down or been passed down to me actually come into effect. Therefore, common diseases does not have to be common to me. Isn't that right? All right. So there's 4 things that we must become intelligent to with illness. These 4 things are disease. So I need to know about the disease. What is the disease? How does it affect my body? I need to know the cause of it. Because as we discussed, we said in Proverbs 26:2, it says that the curse causeless shall not come. That means that anytime a disease comes, it comes because of a what? Cause, right? And then it says in Job chapter 29, verse 16, it says, and the cause which I knew not, I searched out. So we need to figure out how we can prevent these things. So if we know that a disease comes because of a reason, now I need to figure out what that reason is so that I can make a change and then access the cure. Is that right? All right. We discussed symptoms, risk factors, treatment, and prevention of these 4 common diseases. I know it's a little small. I was talking to, I'm going to do something different on next week. And probably give handouts. So for those who may have difficulty reading, like the small print, that's very small, that you'll have access to it as well. But I'll go ahead and read it. Here's some of the the preventative things that we discussed on last week in regards to these diseases, because what we learned is that most of them have the same treatment plan. Most of them have the same methods of overcoming them as the other. And it says refraining from the use of substance use or abuse, i.e. tobacco, alcohol, things of that nature as well, and drugs. And then regular exercise or physical activity. If we exercise 30+ minutes of moderate activity, it would help to manage our weight. It would help to move around our blood. It would help to maintain a good cardiovascular system and muscle system as well, to help us to be preventative. We'll take preventative methods that we don't have these diseases to come upon us. Reduce or eliminate cholesterol intake. Dietary cholesterol is only found in animal products. So as we eat animal products, we see that these animal products has an effect on our arteries, on our veins, on everything that we have, so that it actually can help to lead towards or increase the risk of receiving these common diseases. And then it says that a plant-based diet is best. We encourage a plant-based diet for those. If you aren't familiar with a plant-based diet, that's something that we can discuss as well. But that is what's best to help our system to be preventative in diseases. And then it says to reduce intake of saturated fats, trans fats, and salts. And we talked about salt. Not only having, we should only have, if we're going to have salt at all, only 3/4 of a teaspoon of salt over the course of the day. It says eating more fruits, nuts, vegetables, and grains, low in fats and refined oils, a diet high in fiber, and avoid sugar and sugary foods. And we talked a little bit about sugar and how sugar actually disables the immune system as well, makes us susceptible for diseases. All right. Also, too, increasing our garlic intake. We talked about garlic and how garlic basically helps with everything. It's an anti-inflammatory, antifungal, anti-everything in order to help us to maintain a healthy system. Avoid overeating, regular exercise, and avoid stress. Now, stress comes a lot. Doesn't come often, stress. But, you know, really it's how we look on things which determines if it's stressful to us. Because what may stress me out may not necessarily stress you out. Is that right? So we need to find better ways to, when stress does come, that we can cope with it. All right, next we talked about God's plan, 8 laws of health. And we talked about godly trust, we talked about open air, daily exercise, sunshine, proper rest, lots of water, always temperate, and nutrition. And if we follow these 8 laws of health in faith, then we can overcome many of the diseases or escape many of the diseases that will plague the society on today. Amen? Amen. All right. So now we're going to transition into our message for today. Healthy eating habits. Healthy eating habits. Ask yourself, no show of hands, do I believe that I have healthy eating habits? And if the answer is not equivocally yes, then this is for us. Isn't that right? All right, I said us. Did y'all hear that? So, all right. So before we begin, we want to learn a little bit about the digestive system. So I'm going to step to the side for a second, and we're going to watch a video which actually explains digestive system, so we can know a little bit more on how we are impacted from day to day. Bear with me just one second as I pull it up.
Our digestive system is made up of a series of organs that allows our body to get the nutrients and energy it needs from the food we eat. Digestion starts in the mouth, where chewing and saliva breaks down food so it is more easily processed by your body. Once you swallow, the food enters the esophagus, which is a muscular tube that connects the pharynx, or throat, to the stomach. The esophagus contracts as it moves food into the stomach. A valve called the lower esophageal sphincter, or LES, is located just before the opening to the stomach. This valve opens to let food pass into the stomach from the esophagus, and it prevents food from moving back up into the esophagus from the stomach. Next is the stomach, an organ with strong muscular walls. It holds the food and mixes it with acid and enzymes that continue to break the food down into a liquid or paste. Almost 20 feet long, the small intestine, also called the small bowel, is the workhorse of the digestive system. It will continue to break down food with enzymes released by the pancreas and bile released from the liver. It is made up of 3 segments: the duodenum, which continues the breakdown of food, and the jejunum and ileum, which are mainly responsible for the absorption of nutrients. Aiding the digestive process is the pancreas. Among its other functions, the pancreas helps digestion by producing digestive enzymes and secreting them into the duodenum, the first segment of the small intestine. These enzymes break down protein, fats, and carbohydrates. The liver is another organ with many functions. Its main responsibilities in the digestive process are to make and secrete bile, and to process and purify the blood, which contains newly absorbed nutrients that are coming from the small intestine. Bile has 2 main purposes. to help absorb fats, and to carry waste from the liver that cannot pass through the kidneys. Bile made in the liver travels to the small intestine through bile ducts. If the bile isn't needed immediately, it is stored in the gallbladder, which is a pear-shaped reservoir located just under the liver. The gallbladder sends this stored bile into the small intestine to aid in the digestion of food. Next along the journey is the colon, or large intestine. It is a 5 to 7 foot long muscular tube that connects the small intestine to the rectum and is responsible for processing waste so that defecation is easy and convenient. The rectum is an 8-inch chamber that connects the colon to the anus. The rectum receives stool from the colon, sends signals to the brain if there is stool to be evacuated, and holds stool until evacuation can happen. The last part of the digestive tract, the anus, consists of pelvic floor muscles and 2 anal sphincters, internal and external. Together, their jobs are to detect contents in the rectum, determine whether the contents are liquid, gas, or solid, and then control when stool should or shouldn't be excreted from the body. It's useful to understand the digestive system and the role it plays in your overall health and well-being. Knowing where to go when conditions of the digestive system affect your health and well-being is just as important. The University of Michigan Health System is home to one.
All right. So we see here just how complex the digestive system is. Is that correct?
Yes.
How many of you guys knew all of that? I got a hand in the back. No? So pretty much, yeah, we kind of got the main different, you know, the small intestine, the large intestine, things of that nature as well. But just how they all work together in order to make you, you. Isn't that right? So we're gonna, just one second, let me click back on the slide. Guess I'm not liking that, huh? There we go. So we're just gonna go over them briefly in context. And it says that the mouth, it says thoroughly chewing breaks down food into small particles that digestive juices can penetrate, allowing saliva to mix well, allows substances in the saliva to kill many bacteria, and stimulates production of digestive juices in the stomach, which activates the remainder of the digestive tract. So when we're actually chewing, the body produces saliva, which tells the rest of your system that it's ready to do what? To begin the digestive process. Is that right? Many of us, sometimes we chew gum or we do different things. And you know, when we're chewing gum, what happens? And it starts to do what? Now, one of the things that when I was chewing gum, it used to give me bad gas. You know, I don't know anything about anybody else, but what was happening was it was actually taking in air as though it was taking in food, and it will cause me problems. So therefore, it lets us know that as we start to chew on food, it starts the process of digestion, even beginning in the mouth. It says the digestive enzymes in saliva begin breaking down fats and starches in the mouth for future absorption. So let's go down to the next step, which is the esophagus goes down to the stomach. So after I chew it and I masticate it in my mouth, and we're supposed to thoroughly chew your food, all right? It says that when food is swallowed, it is called bolus. It slides down the esophagus to the stomach, and digestion of starches continues until the bolus is broken down by the muscular action of the stomach. And we talked about the sphincters both, but anyway, the mucus produced by stomach linings helps to protect the stomach lining from the strong acids and digestive juices. And so we see here that there's an importance for the intestine or the esophagus as it goes down as well. Now, the small intestine is very important that 92% of all absorption occurs in the small intestine. The first part of the intestine actually continues to break it down, but the last two actually absorbs those nutrients into our system. It really is important to note because as we look at the small intestine and as it absorbs what it is that we eat, we recognize that we are what we eat. The nutrients that we consume inside of our body in the small intestine is broken down and then is absorbed into our bloodstream, which feeds our organs in our cells and things, which ultimately feeds our brain, which produces our thinking. So if I'm eating garbage, what ultimately happens? I mean, hopefully nobody actually eats real garbage, but you know what I mean. Like, when we're eating different, chips and snacks and things of that nature that may not be the healthiest, they can actually have a negative impact on our bloodstream, ultimately leading to the common diseases that we talked about on last week, right? All right. And so the large intestine, all right, so after it works through the small intestine and nutrition is absorbed, in the large intestine, still 7% of absorption occurs in the large intestine as well. But at this particular point, it starts to separate. It says that the water is removed from the bowel contents and it becomes known as feces. So it breaks up the nutrients from the waste. Isn't that right? Which ultimately will be eliminated from our body. And toxins in our system, by failing to eliminate, some people have intestinal issues, actually can be a very deadly type thing as well, because as those toxins remain in our system, they can contaminate our bloodstream, ultimately leading to those common diseases as well. All right. And we all know the rectum actually holds the feces until it's evacuated out of the system through the veins. All right. So we're going to talk a little bit about good eating habits. And I'm trying to move through it very quickly, so hopefully you guys are following along. Okay. So anybody familiar with this? Yeah. This is a old type slogan. This is probably a very, long-term picture that they have right here that I was able to find. But Wheaties, they said Wheaties is what? The breakfast of champions. Now, we are not condoning eating Wheaties on today. However, we are condoning the fact that what? Breakfast is important. We need to have breakfast because breakfast helps to make you a champion. Isn't that right? It says it is the custom and order of society to take a slight breakfast. It says, but this is not the best way to treat the stomach. At breakfast time, the stomach is in better condition to take care of more food than at the second or the third meal of the day. The habit of eating a sparing breakfast and a large dinner is wrong. It says, make your breakfast correspond more nearly to the heartiest meal of the day. Does anybody know what breakfast actually means anyway?
Breakfast.
Break fast. You're breaking your fast that should have started the night before, isn't that right? Or really the day before. Evening and the morning is the first day, right? And so as we see here, we're breaking our fast, and the breakfast should be what? The largest meal or the most important meal of the day. So look, science demonstrates the benefits of breakfast. It says that 1 in 7 factors found to correlate most strongly with longevity. So eating good breakfast helps with what? Longevity. It says more efficient problem solving, improved memory, better test scores, increased verbal fluency, improved attention span, better attitudes, especially for kids or students, right? So I don't know if any of you guys are teachers, but when a kid comes into school and they haven't eaten, tend to be a little bit more trouble than before, isn't that right? Being an educator and an administrator, I can kind of attest to that. So first off, we have to ask, well, what's going on? Why haven't you eaten this morning? Oh, well, let me help you out. And it helps everybody out, isn't that right? All right, so superior nutritional profiles. It says for better weight control, school attendance, and overall well-being, and then higher IQs among the elderly as well. So not only does it help the young, but guess what? It helps those who are a little more seasoned in age as well. Breakfast skippers. If you're a breakfast skipper, here's some information as well. It says those who skip breakfast have a 2.5 times greater incidence of heart attacks. It says platelets become stickier in the morning and thus increase risk of clot formation, which can lead to a heart attack. Most heart attacks occur between 7 and 12 noon, research says. And eating breakfast can help to decrease the stickiness of the platelets. So not only does breakfast help you to think better, to act better, to feel better, to get that energy inside your system to help start you on your day, it can also help save your life as well too, all right? So establishing healthy eating habits, we're still talking about that. And now we're moving on to drinking with meals. I'm hoping as I'm telling you some of this, that after we're finished, you're still going to like me a little bit. Because I'm going to be sharing some information that, we tend to do, but once we know, we have to then make a decision to do a little bit better. Eating between meals is not good. If you look over to the far right, you'll see a big picture with a drink and a hamburger right there, or what's a plant-based burger that we had? Whatever the plant-based burger is, and it says, don't do it. All right. And so it says, many make the mistake of drinking cold water with their meals. Food should not be washed down. It says, taken with meals, water diminishes the flow of saliva. And we learned earlier that saliva does what? It breaks down what's there. It helps to promote the system for digestion as well. But if I stop it or if I diminish it, guess what? It says greater the injury to the stomach. Why? Because the colder water makes everything else, the digestive system, work that much more harder. All right. It says ice water or ice lemonade taken with meals will arrest digestion until the system has imparted sufficient warmth to the stomach and enable it to take up its work again. So basically what that just said is that if I'm eating and I'm drinking, especially if I'm drinking something cold, my body stops the digestive process. It has to warm itself up, which takes some time, which means that food sits in my system until it actually does warm up. And if it's meat and things of that nature, we know warm meats and stuff like that to resting in real hot temperatures brings about decay and disease, isn't that right? So even if it's plant-based meal, it still stops the digestive process, which is not good. And then ultimately it has to warm itself up. Not only warm itself up, but then it has to what? Let's say the words. Oh, there it is. It has to get rid of the liquid. The liquid must be absorbed before it can begin digestion again. All right? So that food sits inside of me until I am able to eliminate the liquid, and then also it begins eating there as well. All right? Masticate slowly and allow the saliva to mingle with the food. The more liquid there is taken into the stomach with the meals, the more difficult it is for that food to digest, and the liquids must be absorbed first. So why is this philosophically correct or true? Physiologically true. It says water or fluids mixed in the mouth with foods causes inhibition of saliva production. Thus, digestion of starches and fats in the mouth is greatly hindered or does not occur at all. It says this impairs digestion and forces a greater burden on the rest of the system. Water, fluids mixing with boluses of food in the stomach cause the boluses to disintegrate faster, and they become mixed with stomach acids, and the digestion of starches and fats are prematurely halted. In addition, enzymes cannot work properly when they are diluted with water. So should we eat and drink at the same time? No, we shouldn't. All right. Snacking. Hopefully y'all will like me after this. All right. Snacking between meals. We're going to move on just a little bit, but snacking. Many people, they'll eat a meal in the morning time or whatever it's to, and, have a bag of chips or something, or a bag of something that's there, and be like, oh, you know what, let me go ahead and eat that. And pop one in their mouth. We're going to talk about what happens when you do that, all right? So snacking. Sorry, it's so small, I'll read it. It says that X-ray studies were done on test volunteers to determine how long it takes for the stomach to empty itself. So they did a study. They wanted to know, okay, well, how long does it take for the digestion process once you begin eating to the time where it is completed digestion? And they found that the stomach was typically empty in less than 4.5 hours. Now we know about 5 or 6, and we'll talk about it in just a little bit. But in their study, they said 4.5 hours after routine breakfast of cereal, cream, bread, cooked fruit, and an egg. Now, this is a little bit smaller. It says that a few days later, these same persons were given the same type of breakfast. So they were given the same type of breakfast they had before. A little different here. 2 hours after breakfast, one had ice cream. So they ate the same food, and it said 4.5 hours later, it was gone out of their system. But now, a few days later, they gave them the same meal that should have taken or been done in 4.5 hours, but gave him ice cream in between that time. He was found to have a residue in his stomach after 6 hours. So it increased his digestion time just by one ice cream cone by an hour and a half. Right? It says another one was given peanut butter sandwich 2 hours after breakfast. He was found to have residue after 9 hours. So it went from 4.5 to 9 hours. Talking about 4.5 hours, isn't that right? That doubles the time. It says a third was given a piece of pumpkin pie and a glass of milk 2 hours after breakfast. And he was observed to have a large amount of residue after 9 hours. So that means that if I eat and then I go and eat again, guess what I've just done? I've stopped the digestive process on the food that I had already eaten, and I'm starting the new process with the new food, and it has to catch up all together to get out of the system. So think about that. 4.5 hours, or basically over 9 hours, let's just say 9 hours. So for twice the amount of time, 4.5 hours, that food is sitting inside of your system as it's trying to catch up with the rest of the food that already had begun.
Would you consider a handful of blueberries 2 hours after a wrong snack?
I believe any snack that would interfere with the digestive process of what you first had, though, even though it may be a healthy substance, it's just not helpful to my system. Because as we talked about a little bit earlier, the stomach muscles is a strong muscle that actually breaks down a lot of these things. But what we end up doing is we make our system a lot weaker because it's constantly working. It's constantly working. And it can fully understand the digestive system, and that's why we're talking about it today. It'll help us to live healthier lives, because a lot of us don't know this. Let's be honest with you. A lot of us don't realize that, hey, look, if I eat this and I pop this, one little thing in my mouth, my body has to start the process of digesting that one little thing. All right. And see, and it goes on and on. You guys got the whole gist of the research study. But it says many of the chemicals produced during partial digestion are toxic, such as aldehydes, alcohols, amines, and esters. It says these can cause an intoxication of brain, liver, kidneys, and other delicate tissues. So improper digestion or partial digestion brings about common diseases. Right? Research indicates that no snacking was included as one of the 7 factors found to correlate with strongly with longevity in life and vitality and everything like that as well. So snacking, and I probably should have put the regularity in eating first, but we're going to talk about that now as well. Let's see the fruit clock. Regularity in eating, all right? So regularity in eating. It says regularity in eating is vital, is of vital importance. There should be a specific time after each meal. There should be a specific time for each meal. I apologize. It says at this time, let everyone eat what the system requires and then take nothing until the next meal. That's what they counsel on diets and foods. And it says circadian rhythms have a significant impact on digestion. They gradually prepare the body and digestive system for an anticipated meal several hours before the actual meal, preparing digestive juices to be available to be secreted at just the right time, etc. As a result, irregular eating typically leads to impaired digestive process. It goes along with what we've been reading in a study that they did on how food stays with your system when we snack or eat in between meals. So regularity in eating continues. It says after disposing of one meal, the digestive organs need to rest. Our digestive organs need to do what? To rest. These things are muscles in our bodies. And just as you would go when you would probably lift weights, nobody can lift weights all day long. Is that right? You have to do what? Rest. Your muscles get what? Fatigued. I think I heard somebody say it. Your muscles get fatigued. It's the same thing with our body system as well. And we wonder why we're very tired and things of that nature as well, is because of how it impacts and weighs on our bodies day in and day out on how we eat, how we live. It says at least 5 or 6 hours should intervene between meals. So that means that if I know I need to have 5 or 6 hours between meals, I have to plan my day in order to eat, meals throughout the day. If I'm going to eat 3 meals throughout the day, and we'll look a little bit later, some meals, or it's in the right day, 2 meals sometimes are preferable to 3. You know what I mean? But if we have to eat 3 meals a day, then that means that what time do I need to start so that I can work throughout my meals throughout the day. And sometimes we get the, and I have to confess myself as well, sometimes we may be working and we forget to, I don't want to say forget to eat a meal. You remember to eat the meal, but you get so caught up in your work that you just neglect to go do it. Trying to catch up at the next meal, it doesn't work. It really overtaxes the system. We talk about overeating it just a little bit later. But 5 or 6 meals should intervene between meals. 5 or 6 hours should intervene between meals. It says, and most persons who get the plan of trial will find that 2 meals a day are better than 3. Continues on. 2 meals a day are preferable to 3. Supper, when taken at an early hour, interferes with the digestion of the previous meal. So again, if there's not enough time in between our meals, then ultimately what we do is we compact the meal that we had before. And it says, when taken later, it is not itself digested before. I'm sorry, when taken later, it is not itself digested before bedtime. So a lot of times we go to sleep with food on our stomach. It says, thus the stomach fails to secure proper rest. The sleep is disturbed. The brain and the nerves are weary. The appetite for the breakfast is impaired, and the whole system is unrefreshed and unready for the next day's duties, or for the day's duties to go ahead of us. How many of us sometimes wake up, no raise your hand. I mean, some of us wake up and we're tired, we're exhausted, and we don't know why in the world we did it. Then we stop and we think, oh man, I had that food last night. Here it is right here. Sometimes we have bad nightmares. You eat, and then you have ever, has anyone, now you can raise your hand for this one. Has anyone ever heard that? Like you eat, then you have nightmares and things of that nature? You hear that coming up, right? Well, okay, guess what it says? It counsels the diets and food. So it's counseled in here as well. And it says, other quotes describe, it says, the sleep of such is generally disturbed with unpleasant dreams. I apologize. This is another quote describes the effects of eating just before going to bed. The sleep of such is generally disturbed with unpleasant dreams, and in the morning they wake unrefreshed. The blood becomes impure, and complexions sallow, and eruptions will frequently occur or appear. And so we see here some people, like if you have bumps, acne, boils, things of that nature as well. These toxins within our system actually are trying to get out. And the largest organism that our body has is what? Skin. So it's going to come out through what? The skin. And we're wondering why we're having like things on our face and stuff happening to us. Our blood is becoming pure because of our eating habits that we have. It's not just about eating habits, sleeping habits, things of that nature. But today we're talking about what? Healthy eating habits, all right? Overeating. And here's a study, another study, and we'll take a look at it in a second. Short-term overeating having lasting impacts long-term. All right? Let me see if I can pull it up here. All right. All right. Let's see. Let's see if it'll work. Okay. A little better. All right. So we'll try to skim through it fast. Let me see. Overeating, even in short periods of time, severe past long-term effects they found. This is a study that was done in 2010. We're going to go ahead and skip down to the actual study. They took 18 men, 18 women around the age of 26. 26 would be considered to be a younger age, isn't that right? All right. But it says right here, it says to increase their energy intake about 70% and cap their physical activity of no more than 500 steps a day, or roughly 2.5 miles for 4 weeks. So they said they took basically 70% more of their energy intake or calories and things of that nature. And then they limited their exercise or their ability to move around. It says the participants' daily energy intake before the study was on average about 200 or 2,270 calories per day. And they increased it by 70%, which also led them to be around like, what's it, 4,000? Okay, told me here. Anyway.
4,000.
4,000 something. You see it?
The line right below the gap.
Gotcha. Okay. Translates to nearly 4,000 calories a day. Thank you. Appreciate that. All right. 4,000 calories a day. And I was talking to a gentleman a little while ago. That's a lot of calories. That is a lot of calories to eat over the course of the day. But guess what? The diet was not healthy. With an unhealthy diet brings about a lot of calories and things of the nature. Well, calories are good, but in excess, they're not good as well, right? It says during the intervention, the diet was mainly from fast foods such as hamburgers, pizzas, and French fries. And they did this for 4 weeks. All right. And it says that they evaluated the body mass index and other data at the start of the study, also after the 4 weeks of binge eating, again 6 months, again 6 and 12 months later, and then 2.5 years later. All right. And he compared the feasting group with another group. So this is the control group, and it says that who didn't feast will have a cap on their physical activity, and their average age is around 25. So they compared the two. The feasting group gained an average of 14 pounds after 1 month of binge eating. So they binge ate for the 4 weeks, and they gained on average everyone about 14 pounds. I mean, some people maybe had a little bit less, some people had a little bit more. And it says while the body weight overall of the comparison group stayed the same, the ones who did not binge eat. All right. And it says after 6 months, the feasting participants lost about 50% of the weight gain. Now, this is half a year later. They did it for 1 month. And then half a year later, they still had the weight on them from their 1 month of binge eating. And it says 50% of the weight gain, but still had a higher body weight than they did when they first started the study. It says 5 participants have returned to nearly the weight that they had started. After 12 months, the overall weight was still higher than the start of the study. And after 2.5 years, the weight of the comparison group was the same overall, the ones who did not do the binge eating. And it says, but those with the feasting group had a further rise. The average weight of the study start was 149 pounds, but it had risen to an average of 160 pounds. So those people 2.5 years later, after 1 month of binge eating, still had that on their system. And I tell you a lot about eating and how it affects us. So imagine this was a short-term binge eat. How about if we binge eat long-term? And what does it do to our body and our system? All right. All right. So that's basically that. For that, we'll go ahead. So do we see the importance of the impact of our eating? Reduce. All right. Got it. There we go. All right. What happens when you overeat? All right. And we'll go ahead and skip that. We talked about it a little bit. When we overeat, it affects our system negatively. Let me look at it real quick. Give me 1 second. I think we can pull it up. When we overeat. What happens when you overeat? All right. It says right here, overeating causes the stomach to expand beyond its normal size to adjust to the large amount of food which was consumed. It expands and it pushes against other organs, making you feel uncomfortable. It also makes your clothes feel tight too. Some of us have our clothes feeling tight, maybe because we may have ate a little bit too much that last meal that we just had. All right. You know, at Thanksgiving, you got to pop your top button open. You know, well, there's a reason for that, right? Let me say, to break down food, the stomach produces hydrochloric acid. If you overeat, this acid may back up into the esophagus, causing heartburn. And we talked about the fact that there was 2 sphincters, and when you talk about acid reflux, that's that it pushing back up through that into your esophagus, causing that real uncomfortable feeling, right? And it says consuming too much food that is high in fat, like pizza and cheeseburgers, may make you more susceptible to heartburn. Your stomach may also produce gas, leaving you with an uncomfortable, full feeling, and your metabolism may speed up as it tries to burn off those extra calories. And you may experience a temporary feeling of being hot, sweaty, and dizzy. Then we talk about some long-term effects of overeating, and it takes a toll on your digestive system. It stores fat. It says the rest is stored as fat, but it also impacts your sleep, cardiovascular clock, etc., etc. So we see here basically that overeating has a negative impact on our system. Overeating has a negative impact on our system and actually helps to lead to those common diseases that we talked about on last week. And it says in Council of Diets and Foods, it says, what influence does overeating have upon the stomach? It becomes debilitating. The digestive organs are weakened. and disease with all of its train of evils is brought on as a result. Isn't that what we just read and studied? So as we talk about common diseases, we see that a lot of the common diseases that we have are a direct result of our eating habits. Okay?
How can we determine if we're overeating? How much is enough for each individual?
Well, you know what? That varies for each individual. But typically what, I can't go off of calories and body mass index and things of that nature. But when we have a suggestion? Somebody have a suggestion? No? No, go ahead. Go ahead. Okay, go ahead.
Usually, for me, and my husband said it's different for each one. When you kind of feel a little bit that sensation of, I had enough, but I really want to eat a little bit more. That's really when you're fine. Your body's had enough. If you eat more, then that's when you start to expand and you start having more problems. So right when you feel like, man, and we have the balance between eating, for taste. We don't want to live to eat, but eat to live. So,
Okay.
that's just
Yeah. Thank you.
For some of us that chew really fast,
Mhm.
that connection to your brain is telling you that full, it doesn't
Right.
catch up if you eat really fast.
Right.
You don't take the time to chew properly.
Right.
You don't feel like you're satisfied.
That's right. That's absolutely true. As a matter of fact, if I'm correct, I read somewhere, I don't know if I'm putting it in the slideshow, but I believe it takes about 20 minutes for your body to register as full, even after you become full. So I remember one time in college, and they had these biscuits, and these biscuits. I mean, I love. I'm a pancake fan. I've always grew up. I love pancakes, and these biscuits taste like pancakes when you put syrup on it. And so I was with my friends, my guys, and stuff like that too. And it was breakfast. It was actually on a Sabbath. That's even worse. And let me tell you something. It was biscuit after biscuit after biscuit, and it got so much that we all, and I don't know if they're gonna be listening to this or not, but man, we were all laid out in pain and hurting and stuff like that too. We had overeaten. I'm gonna say I had overeaten, and I'd overeaten so much and so fast that, like we just said, my brain didn't tell me that I was done, and it caused tremendous pain for a long time. Didn't go to church that Sabbath, so I was in pain, laying on the floor. So overeating does have its issues that comes along with it, and it's taxing on the system. But to answer your question, we have something that's there too. You can tend to portion your meals out as you eat from day to day. What typically is enough to make you satisfied? And I can actually do those portion sizes. When you look at the ingredients, it talks about serving sizes and things of that nature. You can actually kind of deduct, hey, listen, one serving size, those are 1.5, things of that nature as well. So it varies from person to person, but whatever it is, we need to be temperate in all things. And no, okay, I thought so. Okay. All right, moving forward. So we're going to recap. All right, moving along. We're going to recap here, and it says that developing healthy eating habits. Number one, it says that we want to masticate your food or chew your food very well. The more you chew your food, the less work it has on the rest of your system because you're breaking it down. You have bone inside of your mouth in order to break it down, and when it gets down there are no teeth down there. So that means that if it is unchewed, broken down, then it has to do that system. It has to do that within your system. It says, remember that most absorption takes place in the small intestine, 90%, and in the large intestine. And those nutrients go into our system. So therefore, we are what we eat. All right? Make breakfast the most important meal of the day. Avoid snacking between meals. Eat regularly scheduled meals. And go to sleep with an empty stomach so that you can really say that I broke fast or break fast in the morning. And then eat moderate meals, avoid overeating, which taxes the system, even during Thanksgiving. Right? All right. So, what is God's plan for you? God's plan for you, 3 John chapter 1, verse 2, it says, Beloved, I wish above all things that thou mayest prosper and be in health, even as thy soul prospers. It is God's desire for you to be in health. And as we have gone over these points over the course of this afternoon, we have learned different ways to help us to be in health. So you're in line with what God's will is for you. And it says in 1 Corinthians chapter 10, verse 31, it says, Whether therefore you eat, drink, or whatsoever you do all to the glory of God. That is God's will.
You had mentioned earlier on about breakfast. If you don't eat a good breakfast, that the platelets are more likely to stick. What would cause that? What did I miss?
So, and I'm going to do a little more research on that as well. That's naturally so. It says, and if anybody knows, you can chime in as well. The body's natural system, without that churning or that rejuvenation, is for that process to take place. Now, why that is, I'm gonna have to do some more research in. I just looked at it and said, this is what takes place and this is what happens, though. But we do know that the result of it can lead to that heart attack as well. And therefore, by eating breakfast, it actually removes the stickiness, which actually helps us to have that better health. So thanks for asking that question. I'm gonna look into it as well. Research just says that it happens, so that's what we're sharing on today.
One thing that helps keep your blood platelets sticking together is drinking water.
Mm-hmm. Right.
They say that if you think you're going to have a heart attack, you should drink at least a cup of water, and that'll thin up the blood.
Awesome. That's true. And water, and we may talk about that in one of these next 2 weeks. Is an awesome power. Our body is made up of mostly of what? Water. Therefore, water should be the most important, or one of the most important things. We talked about common diseases, and we looked at number 1 and number 2. And if these things are number 1 and number 2, that means that they must be very important, and we should be knowledgeable about it. Same thing as with our body. What is the number 1 makeup of our body? Water. So therefore, we should be what? Knowledgeable about it, its impact on us. Okay. So therefore, it says we have a decision to make. It says that we can choose. We have the knowledge now, so now we have to do something with this knowledge. I have a friend who once said, he gave this analogy. And he said, a man who is once mistaken, once truth comes, becomes one of 2 things. Now, again, the man was mistaken, but now truth comes. Now, one of 2 things happen. He either ceases to be mistaken or he ceases to be honest. So we have to decide, once we get this information, what it is that we're going to do with it, because it's about life. All right. And so with that being said, we've covered everything that we want to share as far as digestive and healthy eating habits. Do we have any questions?
Yeah, how long do you wait then to, you got to drink a lot of water, so how long do you wait after before you?
So that's a good question.
Okay.
Anyone want to share that?
2 hours.
2 hours? I hear someone else.
I think your body starts talking to you when you get into the habit, and your body will tell you, when the right time for 2 hours.
Okay. Anyone else?
Yeah, it's not covering that. It's just not the snack between meals.
Right.
What about drinking
Between meals?
between meals?
What I've heard too is about 2 to 3 hours as well. And before the meal, it's about 45 minutes, 30 to 45 minutes. All right. So if you're gonna eat 30 to 45 minutes before you eat, you want to make sure that it can flush those fluids throughout your system as well. But then if you actually begin the process of eating, don't drink and wait about, I would say, anywhere from 2.5 to 3 hours as well, because your body would have done the majority of the process of digestion too. And then you still want to be careful even with those cold drinks as well. Cold drinks can be good on a nice hot day, but again, if there's digestion going on in your system and you put a cold drink in there, what happens is that it has to warm up before it does what? That's what we've learned. So I want to give you guys opportunities. There's a lot of people out here who have a lot of knowledge as well, and so share the wealth.
So if you're dealing with constipation, okay, best case scenario, you have broken your fast. You ate a good breakfast, you haven't eaten or drunk between meals. So now it's the first meal of the day, and you're having trouble with constipation, so you want to take in the water. How long do you have to wait? If you take in the water before you eat breakfast now, to help keep the bowels going, how long do you have to wait before you have your breakfast? in order for that water to absorb.
Still the 30 to 45 minutes. But also a good thing for helping with bowels and stuff like that too is lemon water as well. Somebody want to speak on that as well? Anybody have lemon water?
Yeah, we talked about it.
Lemon water and how it helps?
Last week.
Mhm.
So in the morning before you drink or eat anything, you want to take a lemon and squeeze it in 8 ounces of a cup. Warm water, not scorching hot, but just nice, warm temperature, and it will wake your organs up as well as get your body in a mode of passing through your,
Right. It helps to detoxify your body. You hear some people talk about a lemon fast, a lemon juice fast, or lemon. And so all of these things work. Anyway, these things work towards helping to cleanse your body. So getting up in the morning and drinking that lemon water or drinking whatever, this regular water is good, helps stimulate your system, but just make sure that you're not doing it in combination with food because it does hold that digestive process. And again, whenever the digestive process is holding and you got food there, imagine just holding food in your hand, food in your hand. It just sits there, inside your system. And then mind you, again, those if it starts to, for those individuals who may eat meat, things of that nature, because everybody isn't at the same place. Is that if you're a meat eater and you can think about meat and how it works and stuff like that too, when you have meat in a real hot and humid type of environment, you can ultimately, imagine what starts to take place inside of your system. And then what takes place inside of your system then comes into your bloodstream, which ultimately, contaminates your system and causes these common diseases that we tend to see. That's one reason why they're common. We see them, where, you have worldwide cardiovascular issues, worldwide, diabetes and things of that nature as well. And we read learned last week that basically diabetes, type 2 diabetes, that is, basically could be non-existent if people just exercise. I said, forgot, like 2 hours a week, something like that too. Type 2 diabetes would virtually be non-existent. All right. Any other questions? All right. No questions. So I want to thank you for your attention. We're going to take a 5-minute break. A 5-minute break. Go ahead and get your bearings together. Then we sit for a little while, and then we'll go to our cooking demonstration. Right? Be back in just a few.
we're gonna start off with that. Should we start off with another word of prayer real quick? Let's do that. All right, let us pray. Loving Father, we thank you so much for this opportunity, Lord, where we can come together, learn of healthier ways to live and healthier ways to eat. So as we are in this portion of the program, we ask for your Holy Spirit, and we ask for understanding, wisdom, and clarity, so that we can live healthy lives. In Jesus' name, amen. All right, so we're gonna do oatmeal.
Question?
This is the salted salt that we discussed last week. So I brought it so that everyone can kind of see. This is the most desired or suggested salt. Okay, if you want, show that. See it. You can pick it up at your nutrition, your healthy stores, your Mineral Wildwood, or Nutrition Sunshine, or some of those healthier stores to carry it. All right. So what we're going to do now is demo this oat milk. And you can do this with rice, any nut of your choice. We're going to start off with a half a cup of oats, rolled oats. And we're going to put that to 3 cups of water. So I have it here. 1. Now, you have a choice. You can use maple syrup, or you can also use some dates. But I tend to kind of balance between the two. So I have 4 pitted dates here. Put that in first. All right. So that's my 4 pitted dates. And I'm going to also put in a half a teaspoon of vanilla extract. Now it calls for 1/8 teaspoon of salt, and I have pink Himalayan salt. And that is your ingredient. We're going to blend for 30 seconds. Oh, you can pour it in. There's a little extra. We always talk about get your the whole thing, right? Every nook and cranny. We want to get all of it. Okay. So now this is where we blend. Because you have to put it dates, you know, you have to kind of make sure that there's no particles in your mixture. I think I'm going to just put it up. Looking around. All right. Okay. So this is where we are done with this. And your mixture is complete, but what you want to do is strain it. You can use a strainer. I tend to use a strainer. Also, a cheesecloth would also do, and which will separate that film that oatmeal kind of gives that grittiness. And let's see if I can. Everybody can kind of see it. Hold the bowl up for me. Pours out like milk. Down to the little brine, slime, that my daughter likes to call it. And so, as you see, it's like a little stem here, a little stem, right there. All right, that. Thank you. then you want to sit it in a container and fridge it. Okay, this is oatmeal, and you can strain it like what I did with this one. I strained it twice. So what I did was I strained it like this with this, and I have here a cheesecloth. What I use. See how they kind of have it, and that kind of gets all of the extra film that may have slipped through. You kind of.
How long did you keep that in the fridge? Like 2 or 3 days?
Yes, about 3 or 4 days, somewhere around there, 3 days, and it will stay fresh. Here's your oatmeal. Now you can
Very good.
You're welcome. You can do this with rice.
Just cook it first.
Cook it first. Well, you don't have to cook it first. You don't just soak it. And you can do the same thing with nuts. Just soak it, and then you can do the same procedure that we just went.
Is that recipe written down somewhere?
Well, you know what? Mr. Jones?
Especially over the course of the entire seminar, we're gonna write down all of the recipes, and then we're gonna you can email them or give you a hard copy as well. You'll have,
All right. So this is that concludes our oatmeal. Simple, right? Simple. How does it taste?
Delicious.
Awesome. That's what I like to hear.
Sweet.
Sweet. And that's just dates. You know, you can use any sweetener of your choice, but you know, when we talk about eating to live, you want to use the most healthiest sweeteners or the most healthier additives that you're going to add to your food. So I use dates because it's healthy. Healthy. So this brings us to our next demonstration. And here we're going to make a blood builder. So I'm one that, you know, kind of suffer from anemia. And so in order to keep my blood where it is, of course, you have to eat the proper nutrition. You got to get your magnesium, your iron. But you can also add to that by doing this simple drink. And it calls for organic grape juice. Okay, you can find this at Walmart. And they have a healthy section there. And most health food stores, Sprouts, all of them have them. Kroger's have them as well. So what I'm going to do first is, this is what I typically do. I usually pour it in a container. And this is a 32-ounce jar. That's supposed to be a 32 ounce. And I usually rinse it out, any excess film, but you know, we're not gonna die. So we're going to first start off with 3 to 4 figs. And typically, what you want to do with the figs is kind of like, you just want to kind of open it up because all the nutrition part of it is on the inside. So kind of just drop it in like that. See? And you just want to do that with all of them. So pretty much three of everything, but I tend to kind of do 4 because the stronger, the better.
What are you making?
This is a blood builder drink, and it's not just good for those with anemia. It's good for patients who are cancer patients as well. So this builds up the blood and makes it very, great organic grape juice alone is good for cancer patients. But then you have all these extra ingredients like the apricots and the prunes and the figs, the raisins, and all of them working together.
In comparison, how about beets?
Say that one more, beets.
Beets.
Beets is another good one for blood building and good for everything that we just discussed. So that's another one. You said in comparison though. You really can't,
It's similar.
yeah, you can't really compare the two. It's just preference. I mean, this one has a more fruitier drink. So here you go. This is your prunes. I'm gonna put 4 of those in. 2, 3, 4.
Something that I've heard helps with digestion.
Yes, prunes is definitely a great, and we eat them in our home, don't we, children?
Yeah, I know.
Putting them on the spot. Yes, they are good.
What did you just put in
Raisins.
there?
That was, I'm sorry, that was an apricot. So with 4 apricots. And here we have 1/4 cup of raisins of your choice. Doesn't matter if you use the golden ones. I use those actually. I prefer the golden ones. They have like a different flavor to the drink. Okay. And last but not least, this is your blackstrap. This is your blackstrap molasses, and you want to pour about 1/4 to 1/3 cup of that. And that's the one that we tend to use.
Nitty gritty.
Say that one more time.
Nitty gritty.
Yes,
It's good stuff.
yes, it is good stuff. It's good for iron, all those calcium, potassium, and iron. It's going to add to it. So now we kind of understand why it's good for building the blood. It's hard and potassium. All these good Yep. And that's all you do. And then take your funnel. You take your funnel and you pour it back in container. There's always some left over. It never goes all the way. It's always And then what you want to do with this type of drink, you don't just drink it. Typically, you don't drink it immediately. But for the purpose of this class, I'll let you all taste it because I didn't have it pre-done. But what you do, cover it. And I knew this is where I usually ask my husband to come and give it a good shake. Because all of the things that we just put in here, like at the bottom, caked to the bottom. So, okay, so because I don't usually get the black strap from the bottom too much. Not really, I guess, that bad, but for me, he just, and then it's done. Okay. And there are some cups in that. Oh, okay, wonderful. They already, our team is already ahead of the game. Thank the Lord for the help. All right.
But you don't have to blend it?
You do not have to blend this drink.
So
It just saturates all the nutrition from everything we added to it. It just kind of saturates in that. So usually we shake it one good time and we let it sit for 12 hours. Then you shake it one more time and you sit it in the fridge. So you sit it out the first 12 hours so that it can just marinate. And then it's drawing everything from every, all the nutrition. And then you put it You put it in the fridge, and after that, it takes about 24 hours for it to really be ready. So you'll be able to test it today. It just won't be saturated in it, but it, you know, you can kind of get the flavor of what it will taste like.
And it probably doesn't last long in the fridge, but again, another like 3 or 4 days.
You can have this drink up to a week, week and a half even. It's good for women, you know. It's good for women on a monthly basis, and it's just good. It's a good energy booster. That does give you energy as well, and it does. It's not going to be something immediately that you get that you're going to feel the effects. Usually, you know, when you're doing it natural, it takes a little bit of time for your body to get used to routine and get used to recognizing, okay, and then your body responds to it. So, yeah.
How many ounces do you drink once you get it done?
You can drink it like I don't want to say a shot, but like a shot, you know. You can drink about 4 ounces or something like that, and just, you know, just drink it, and you're good to go. Yeah, you're good to go. Does
Not that we
anybody?
know anything about that.
Nobody use the terminology.
It's a good metric, that's right.
It is a good metric.
You notice we all understood.
We all know exactly what you were talking about.
Right.
Okay, so they're gonna have that ready for you shortly, and we're just gonna move it right on along. We're making good time here. So now, this is the breakfast dish that I want to share with you. One of our favorite go-tos, and we call it a oatmeal blueberry bake. It is delicious. Okay, so I don't know. Yeah.
Just a disclaimer on the drink as well. The blackstrap and molasses has a taste that is somewhat licorice.
Yeah.
So if you like licorice, great. If you don't like licorice, you'll find out soon enough. But it's good. It's definitely good for you.
Yes, the licorice. You know, I'm not a fan of licorice, but you know, it's a doable drink. You know, I drink it because of what it's good for me. You know.
So about the same amount as that purifying living strength from last.
Pretty much.
With the garlic.
Right, the food drink, the nature's food drink. Yes, the same thing. I mean, if you're doing this preventatively, you just need a little bit. Yeah. You know, we don't need a lot. All right, so it's pretty quiet. What do you think about this?
It's pretty good.
Pretty good? Okay.
I like grapefruit.
Oh, you like grape. And what about the blackstrap?
That was good. I taste
You like blackstrap, so you like licorice.
Yeah.
Okay, it gave me a little bit of time. I'm not a fan of it, but.
Now kids think about it.
Oh, yes, that's another, while I'm on this, thank you, husband. So if you don't do the drink, you know, there's other ways, you know, there's plenty of ways that we can get our nutrition, right? We don't have to go through making this simple drink, but we can take blackstrap, a tablespoon per day, and that builds your iron, you know? So if you're having challenges with iron and anemia, you can just take 1 tablespoon a day and your body will respond to that. All right, we are moving right along. So this is our plant-based blueberry bake. I've tweaked it, you know, a couple times, so I'm going to show you what it is that we have here. So this calls for 2 cups of rolled oats. Okay, where's my rolled oats? I was moving stations, so okay. So usually I have a bowl, and you can mix this in a bowl prior to adding it to the baking dish, but it's okay. We're going to do this in here today. All right, so we're going to have 2 cups of rolled oats, and we do want to add the teaspoon of baking powder. I opt to leave it at home. My apologies for that, but let's just pretend. It really doesn't matter if you have bacon in here, baking powder or not, but it does kind of help with how your food rises a little bit, just a little bit. So we're gonna now, so that would be a baking powder. So let's just pretend we added some baking powder in there. Now we're gonna do 1/4 teaspoon of Himalayan salt. She's checking, she's making sure, mama, that's a different recipe. So then we're going to then add 1/4 cup of chia seeds. Okay. And we have vanilla extract, which is 1 teaspoon. Well, before I do that, I always like to kind of mix my dry ingredients. So let's just kind of give it a little whisk here. And one of the things I like to add, this is just, of course, when you're making it for a family, you want to multiply the ingredients times. It makes for like typically about 6 people, this particular one. So, I make this times 3, or sometimes 4 for my family. Okay, I'm gonna add this cinnamon as well. This is Ceylon cinnamon. And this is a healthy cinnamon because this does not irritate your stomach. We have some cinnamon that does irritate the stomach, but this is, we think we maybe touched on it last week a little bit.
Where's it from, you know?
Ceylon? I don't know. Let me ask some of my colleagues back here. Does anybody know where Ceylon is from?
Mexico.
India? Okay. Said India. India, Africa. Ceylon. You can pick that up at Sprouts too. So that's who carries Ceylon. And or you can order it offline. Where's Sprouts? Murfreesboro.
Put in another one.
Okay. So
Excuse
we
me,
kind of
which did you say of that? I'm sorry.
It's on Memorial Drive.
it's in the 1/4 cup of I'm sorry, you're talking about the Ceylon?
Yes.
The Ceylon, 1 teaspoon of Ceylon. I apologize. I was thinking about the chia seeds. So starting already, I can already start to smell it.
And what's the benefit of the chia seed?
The chia seeds, you can get your fatty oils from there, your fiber. It just adds a lot of fiber. So often I've spoke to people and they say, how do you eat you got to get your stuff from meat. You have to get it from fish. You have to get it from certain, places, but there are actual things that we can get it from that, we don't have to get it from animal products. We can get it from organic, natural things that are healthier for us.
I just pulled it up as well. It said that it contains large amounts of fiber, omega-3 fatty acids, plenty of highly qualified protein, several essential minerals and antioxidants. They also improve digestive health, blood levels of the heart, and risk factors for heart disease and diabetes.
Thank you.
How did you spell that? I'm sorry.
CHIA.
Yeah, just like chia.
Like the chia pet?
Yep, exactly. Yep.
Mix up
Remember that.
I know.
You can grill it.
All right, so we've mixed our dry ingredients. We're now gonna go ahead and mix our wet ingredients. This is vanilla extract, and it's 1 teaspoon of this. I'm gonna actually add this in my milk. I like to typically add my liquid all at one time. And this is maple syrup. I have 2 tablespoons of this. And I'm gonna put that here. Now, I almost forgot. So when you add maple syrup, sometimes it doesn't come, it doesn't hit the spot right away. So I'm going to add a little bit of stevia. Stevia is a sweetener that kind of is healthier than sugar. It's not sugar, but it is comes from this stevia plant. It adds a little bit of sweetener to it, and it always puts it over the edge for me. So I like to add that too. And this is 2, I think I put 3 tablespoons of stevia in here. Okay, now I'm gonna go ahead and add this milk. I'm using almond milk. Before I do that, I'm just gonna do that. It's just a healthier way to eat oatmeal. And as you see, oatmeal is very versatile. You can do a lot with oatmeal.
One of the different types of oatmeal, you have, blade cut, what does that call it?
Steel cut oatmeal?
Yeah.
Yeah.
What's the difference? I mean,
The difference between them, you know, I don't know the difference. I can research that
I
and
know
get
it's
back to you.
finer
That's probably why it's so cut.
Thank you.
So,
and it cooks faster.
yeah,
Anytime you cut something smaller, it cooks faster.
that's true. This is rolled oats, however. So then, you know, you just add your blueberries onto the mixture after you've added your oatmeal, all your ingredients. Add that in. And I like to add pecans to mine. I really do. Yes, I'm sorry. So the blueberries, for those that are writing it down, 1 half cup, 1.5 cup of blueberries. And the pecans, this was actually a 1 cup of pecans, or pecans. Pecans. Pecans, okay. That's another one. I don't
Question. Is there much difference between the nuts like black walnut versus pecans?
I'm sure there is difference. Brother, someone that knows more about the difference wants to share?
Well, the flavor for one thing. Like
Yes.
walnut has got the strongest flavor. We still have bags and bags of them. But who was it that used to hang around here?
Gil, not Gil, but,
John Russell. Right now. They are so much
The
stronger.
difference between the walnut. What was your question, sir?
the difference between pecans and black walnuts.
Black walnuts are very nutritious. They're in the shape of a brain and they're good for your brain. All the nuts have a good benefit for the body, but each nut has a different property for each part of the body. God is such a wonderful designer that he even gave us a visual of the brain when we look at the walnut. So the walnut is a high vitamin, highly nutritive. Very good.
Okay, thank you for that, Mr. Bridget. So there you have it. That's how you make this oatmeal bake, and you can get fancy with it. You can put coconut shreds over it. You can put your blackstrap molasses over it. Listen, you have to find creative ways to get your nutrition, right? And when you're eating with sweet, you know, it really offsets the flavor and the taste sometimes. So, but you just have to find creative ways. You can add your fruits and fruit platters. You can add your fruits with it. Like I said, you can add coconut. You can add any type of fruit sauce, like a drizzle over it. Just be creative. You know, this was just a simple, and trust me, I think it's trying to get creative in the kitchen. This is just a simple way of how you make it. Then you put it in the oven. You put it in the oven for 30 to 40 minutes at 375.
So it's the one we're trying now, does it have the stevia in it?
Yes. Stevia is in there.
Thank you.
Okay. And just so that you all can know what Ceylon looks like at Sprouts, this is it.
Yeah,
The
I gotta
container.
learn my eating habit.
Oh. Let's leave the tray right here.
Leave a tray. So those of you who were curious as to the Ceylon cinnamon, this is it.
Thank you very much.
This is what it looks like at Sprouts.
What brand is that?
This is Simply Organic. Yeah, they do. I haven't yet seen it, but someone told me, depending on, they
Kroger has it.
Kroger. Okay. Oh, you know what, Brother Clark's good enough.
What is it?
Thank you, Brother Clark. So the Ceylon, Kroger's carries.
You might be able to get food line too. They have that brand in
Other things. Okay, wonderful.
Seems like they have.
That's good to know. That is good to know. Because I don't want to have to drive all the way to Murfreesboro.
Yeah, right.
When I can go right on my neighbor's parents' house. Okay. Yes.
Does anyone know what the difference between stevia and Truvia is?
Truvia, I'm not too familiar with Truvia, but I'm gonna.
Well, it's a stevia. It's stevia, but it just seems to me that the texture is different.
The difference between Truvia and Truvia.
Healthy alternative. Stevia is a plant. It's a natural plant. What was the other sugar? Truvia. Truvia. If that's Belinda or xylitol.
Combo, probably.
Yeah. Xylitol is a sugar alcohol. It's not very good for you. Splenda is not good as well. So, I wouldn't eat any of those.
I used to grow stevia.
Yeah,
You
stevia
crush
is
the
a
leaf
plant.
in your finger.
And you can actually juice it, if you use the juice as a sugar.
Yeah, you can squeeze one and take it
You
right
can
in the
also
grass.
eat the leaf as whole, but it's a great sweetener, that's very good.
All right. So how are you all enjoying your oatmeal blueberry bake?
That was very good.
Pretty simple, right? Simple enough?
Can I ask, please, I missed it. I
Oh, that's-
apologize. Almond milk and how much oatmeal?
Okay, almond milk, 1.5 cup of almond milk for your choice of plant-based milk. And oatmeal was 2 cups. Sure, no problem. If there's anything else, I'd be happy to share. Okay. All righty. So I wanted to show you all something because last week we made pancakes, right?
Yeah.
So I was remiss because I meant to make butter and I shared that with Brother Floyd and he said, oh, that would be a great idea to make some butter. So that's what we're gonna make. Because it's healthier to make your own kind, right?
Butter.
Butter or margarine or something like that.
Butter buns.
Butter buzz?
You're not-
I'm not familiar with that. I'm not
No.
familiar. Okay. All right, so we're gonna make some butter and we call this better than vegan butter. Trying to get it to, it's coming on. So it calls for, I'll tell you what it calls on while it's heating up. Okay, it calls for 1 1/4. It calls for 1 1/4 cup of coconut oil. You want to have that melted, so we have that on here. 3/4 cups of olive oil, but we're going to wait to pour that in the Vitamix. It calls for 2 tablespoons of lecithin. And we're using, I will show you the jar that I have. It's a vegetable lecithin down in there. Can you show the jar? Thank you, son. This is what it looks like. One of the ones we use, the liquid. They have the granules, but I tend to like the liquid.
Where'd you get it?
I got that at Wildwood.
And what's it called?
Lecithin. 1 tablespoon of Himalayan salt, and then you want a half a teaspoon of of salt added to that, and 1 cup of boiling water. So we're letting this kind of melt a little bit. Trying to see if we can kind of get it cranked up a bit. It's okay. It needs to come down this way. I mean, it's just move it on down here.
I'm sure.
Thank you. I have to see how to do this. Right. Well, we'll just do what we can. Just realize how we can. We'll get it. Okay. That's why you have a husband, right? He tells me, oh, we may just have to move it all over and all right, so let's take, while that's melting. So first, you first want to melt the coconut oil. And that's what Kaylin is doing here. She's melting that in a pan or a pot. And then, after you've done that, you want to get it to where it's at least, for the most part, liquefied.
So while she's doing that, all of that, technically, these feed 4 children, when you get home from work, when they get home from school, after they've done their homework, they're not eating till 5. Because they're going to bed at 8. So there's no way they're getting 5 hours of activity and a wait time between them and then they get. So, saying smaller meals at dinner time?
Yep.
The meals should be smaller. The meals should be smaller as we progress through the day. So they say, eat breakfast like a king.
Reverse.
Say that? I'm sorry.
Reverse the American.
Oh, absolutely. My brother here said reverse what the American diet is. You know, we tend to eat large in the evening, but that's actually backwards. So we should eat our larger meal in the beginning portion of the day because we get to burn that fat off. It's not sitting anywhere, and it's just better that way. And then, thank you. So
knowing that they're only going to have about 3 hours, maybe 3.5, to let them sleep up to 30 Is there anything that I can give them to help their digestion while they sleep, so they don't get the heartburn and they don't have their stomach working too hard? Does that make sense? I don't want to give them pills like the doctor gives them, but is there anything I can kind of give them with their dinner to help their digestion?
Well,
like the tea and
So for the most part,
I don't know.
yeah, definitely. Really, there's different different fruits that actually break down a lot easier than like hard substances, soups and things of that nature that actually helps to go through the system, a lot easier. Are best at nighttime because it's not as hard, as rigorous as it would be like your harder things, your oatmeals and things like that too, in the morning time. So, and it also goes to your system probably a little bit faster than some of those harder substances would. Because remember, your body will continue to digest those substances as long as it needs to in order to eliminate it, or in order for it to be completed. Because we have to think about it. Anything we put inside of our system becomes digested. You know what I mean?
That's what I was thinking about. So like milk, good for you. Right. You don't want the last thing that goes in on top of something like the acid because it makes it gives them like a heartburn. I was just wondering if maybe there should be reverse like strawberries and blueberries.
You can do fruits, a fruit salad could be,
Smoothie,
yeah,
like a
it can be
smoothie.
a toast, you know,
A toast?
you can eat toast and fruits, you know, you can eat your cereals in the evening. It's lighter, the lighter meals, you can eat soups, you can do, you know, and I know it's a little difficult initially, but that's the direction.
That's what I'm trying to take is the right direction. So,
Yeah.
I know I made homemade, y'all can believe this, vegetable soup.
Awesome.
And the 3-year-old had 4 bowls of
That's good. Yeah.
4. And we quit it.
Right.
The other ones, you know, the solids we didn't things, we had 2. The girl and Gabriel wouldn't touch it. And so it's trying to find a in between. The chili, they'll all eat it, they like the beans and stuff, but a bean is kind of heavy.
It's kind of heavy.
And I don't want to give it to them if they're not gonna have 5 hours to stay up. I mean, that's usually a weekend meal, so, you know, we have to, you know, all that on Saturday night. So I'm just trying to make sure I'm feeding them right, getting them enough food so they're healthy and smoothies are good.
Yep,
Yes,
smoothies are good. Thank you. Smoothies are good. Anything that we, like my brother said, what's your name here? Sorry.
What is my name?
Al. Big Al.
Like brother Al said, you know, he said we just have to flip what we've been taught.
Yes.
We just have to reverse it. And if we can do that, then we'll be on the right track. And so whatever we would consider a light snack, we can eat that as a light meal. And
Yeah, I'm blessed.
it will make it'll help our stomach not to have to work so hard. Yes.
Would, small cut up raw vegetable?
Yeah, of course. If it's a light, you know, you just don't want to eat heavily. You know, whatever it is. If you choose to have a fruit, you can do fruit. If you choose to have vegetables, you don't want to mix vegetables together, vegetables and fruit together. Right, and, you know, they digest differently. So you really talk about yes, gas and gastro problems. That when we combine the fruit and vegetables together, then it does give us heartburns and other stomach problems. So
And you know, the pediatrician, she has a prescription, she told me that my grandson would be heartburn medicine. And I'm thinking, well, why didn't you tell me this off the supposed to help me change his diet? You know, I'm trying to turn it into a vegetarian. I told him he's their pediatrician. And yeah, they're not helpful. They
you have
for
to take
heartburn. I don't want to
health and your own, you know, take control of your own health because we're living in the days where you just have to. So I want to do this while it's what's boiling at one point. But really quickly, this is not going to be long. We have melted coconut oil in the Vitamix. We're going to add our olive oils, 3/4 cups of olive oil. Well, actually, this is vegetable oil because I ran low of olive oil. So then you want to add your lecithin. So we have lecithin over here, and it is 2 tablespoons of that. Now I'm going to try to get everything cranny. All right. And this is where, honestly, I could probably take this out now because. This is where you blend. You're going to blend for. We're going to blend for 15 seconds or until it's pretty incorporated.
It's 15.
Okay.
One 1,000, two 1,000, three.
All right, so this is the part that I did not do, and I'll just do this now. So we have the boiling water. We have 1 cup of boiling water. And to the boiling water, you're gonna add your salt. So we have 1 tablespoon. And you're gonna add half a teaspoon. And I then just want to kind of help it dissolve a little bit. Okay. Now, once this is dissolved, you're then going to add this to your blender. You're going to add it to your blender, but you want to blend slow. So, slowly blending, and you're going to kind of add this. And as you add the pot to it, it will change the consistency of the mixture. And just have to blend, just be patient, and wait. And what you'll find is that it will get creamier. See how it's changing a little? It's not as, it's a little bit more liquefied, a little darker, now it's lighter, and it is now getting creamier. I'll let it blend until it gets to the creamy consistency that I like. And you will pour it in a container. It's not yet as creamy as I like to see it. It's waiting. Yes, thicker. Yeah. How long does it last? Oh, you can freeze this butter. Make it and put it in the fridge. I don't know, in 2 weeks. We make a lot of it at one time. As you see, it's so simple. You can make a lot of it at one time, and then pull it out the fridge as you need it. Yeah. I'm sorry. I haven't, but I know that you can. Yes, you can add whatever you would like to your butter. Some people do corn butter. Some people, whatever you like to put in your butter. Like sweet butter, I'm sure you can add a little bit of honey to it. This is getting thicker. Getting oh yes, thank you. Reminded me I have containers over here. So, sometimes when you're not able to make it and you're needing it really quickly, you have to, you can just go and pick it up. But honestly, I try not to rely on the store. You can make it your own.
What's your opinion of yogurt? What's your opinion of yogurt butter?
Yogurt butter?
Yeah.
I don't think I've ever.
Brian.
I didn't know. I learned something new today. I didn't know that. Okay. Now this is creamy, and this is the consistency that I like it. So when it gets like this, I just pour it in the container.
Wow. So it hardens up in the
It hardens, you can leave it there about 2 to 4 hours, and you come back, it's solid, and it's butter. But when I make it, I usually just put it in the fridge because I make so much of it, you know. And there you have it, that's butter.
Can we taste it?
You can. You can. I'm not gonna ask,
It really tastes like butter, because
taste,
He would like some homemade bread.
I would like it on my oats breakfast.
I meant to share this with you all last week with your pancakes.
Yeah.
You would have had some.
Yeah.
Man. But I thought about it, I said, well, they know about that, and we're gonna get you all, I know some of you are taking notes. We're going to encompass every recipe to you all. I think my husband's gonna email it.
So yeah, if you hadn't signed in as well, just make sure that you sign your name on here. Make sure you put your email address as well.
All right.
And
All right.
yeah, we got that again.
All addresses are on the.
What's the previous one?
No,
Wanna try it?
yes, sure.
Oh, okay.
And one reason why it's so healthy, or it's a good idea to make your own butter versus the ones that are store-bought is because not the plant-based typically, because they're kind of becoming more health conscious about what they add in here. But even you have to be careful with that.
Anything you buy.
You have to be careful with anything. It's so true. But the regular butter has, you know, sometimes they have apple cider vinegars, just some things that are stomach irritants. They really are stomach irritants. So we want to avoid anything that's going to irritate our stomach by putting those things that are not stomach irritants. So I'm hoping that you all can use this butter moving forward in your recipes. It's butter. You can put it on biscuits. You can put it on bread. Anything you would use regular butter with.
So the base of it was coconut oil, right?
It was coconut oil, yes.
And it was a quarter cup of salted apples.
3/4 cup of, right. Today I use vegetable oil, but I use olive oil. You know, I try to stick to olive oil. So, you know, you just want to do coconut oil, olive oil, lecithin, and then you can, and that's vegetable lecithin. I know they have soy lecithin, but I try to not always go to soy because of the estrogen and everything. Try to keep away from so much soy. Of butter. We have so many containers like this when we used to buy it, and I just fill them up and get these from the store. They have them in Walmart. I just bought a case of them and just.
Everybody has those.
Yeah, just it doesn't matter what container you use. Just store it on in there and you'll have it. Okay? All right, let me grab this.
And Erica?
Yes.
If you're using needing an unsalted butter, could you leave the salt out?
Absolutely. You can, if you don't want no salt, just opt out.
Because some
the salt.
baking calls for unsalted butter.
Okay.
A lot of baking does.
Okay.
So,
Yep, this is just for those that like that salty.
I use both.
And just note,
But it was in it. How much salt was in it? How much salt was in
It was 1 tablespoon of Himalayan and also a half a teaspoon of the, you can use Himalayans. It doesn't matter later. Celtic, you can use whatever salt of your choice. If you want to, I guess, err on the side of caution, you can always lessen the amount of salt. So you can imagine that being solid.
it tastes different. Yeah, probably.
Yes.
Yeah.
Does it taste like butter?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's really good. Very good. All right.
70%.
Our final dish for today is Asian sauce that I'm going to share with you. Sometimes, you know, when we're transitioning, or you know, or even when you are transitioning. When you're transitioning, you just want to still, you have food favorites, right? You have food favorites. That's the reality of it. So we are going to, that's what this is about, learning healthier ways to eat our favorite food. So we're gonna, I like Asian bowls. I don't know about you. I like to do Asian bowls. So we're gonna make an Asian. We already have the food part, like the noodles and the vegetable side, but I just wanted to teach you all, share with you all a healthier option for the sauce. So we are going to now put, I have, what is it? Tapioca. I always have a hard time pronouncing this. This is another, like kind of like a cornstarch. You can use arrowroot if you have that. Cornstarch if you have that. It's just a start. I'm sorry. I'm not going to coat. This is going inside of the sauce.
It's like a thickener.
It's a thickener for the sauce. Yeah. So what was it called? This is tapioca, but like I said, you can use arrowroot powder. I have arrowroot. You can use cornstarch. Any sauce thickener, you can use that. You don't have to use this. But that's what this is. I probably got a good deal. I don't always get tapioca. I usually use arrowroot. Sometimes cornstarch. But it must have been a good deal. So,
Smart shopper.
We're proud of you.
I'm going to use about 2 tablespoons of not cornstarch, tapioca starch. Okay, so we have 2 tablespoons of this. And we're going to, you can use sesame oil if you choose to. I am out of sesame oil because I used it already. A lot of the stuff is already pre-made, so, but I used it. And I have some of that in here. So you can use whatever oil you would like to. It could be olive oil, or you can use, I'm sorry. Yes, sesame seed oil. Yes.
Pungent.
Pungent? What, the sesame? It's you mean the actual oil? Yeah, it has a flavor to it, different than regular oil. It's not regular oil, it's sesame oil. So, yeah, it has thank you, it has an Asian flavor to it. So if someone's not really into Asian, but you want to try the dish, you can use olive oil or another oil substitute. Okay, so we have the 2 tablespoons of that. And I am going to add garlic powder to this. I usually make this dish with real garlic cloves, but today I'm using garlic powder, and this is about 3 teaspoons of that. And I have 2 teaspoons of garlic, ginger, thank you, ginger. You know where I'm going with this, okay? So I'm gonna kind of whisk it. If this is my regular bowl, I would have my little whisking spoon, that kind of thing. Would be good. Okay, so let's see. Oh no. Let's put that back in. So while that's happening, I'm just gonna pour some water in here. I'm not gonna pour a whole lot, just some. You kind of eyeball it. Just to see. You want to try as much as possible to mix whatever you're gonna put in, whether you're making a gravy or any type of sauce. Thank you. Prior to it hitting the pan, because one, you cook out all the nutrition from it, and then it lessens the amount of the oil that we should intake if you're using that oil and you're frying it in the pan. So you can just kind of mix your, even whatever gravies or whatever it is that you're using, you want to try and do your mixture prior to hitting the pan. I know coming up, it was, I learned making gravy. Put the oil in the pan, add the flour, and you add your seasonings to it. That's just the way it was. But say that one more time.
You have a brick because of the heat.
Yes, and it's actually not the healthiest, but most people, that's the way most people make it. So once you have mixed it in, yes, my daughter says you can smell it. The garlic and the ginger, those. Okay. All right, one more. Thank you. I still see a couple of lumps in here. I'm not really a fan of lumps, so I'm trying to make sure I get all of it out before I add it to the pan.
What is the pan?
Nothing. Oh. Nothing is in the pan. Oh, no, it's okay. Nothing is in the pan. This is a sauce that I'm sharing with you, so that if anyone is trying to eat healthier but want to have a taste of Asian food, then you can at least know how to make a healthier sauce that doesn't have like the vinegars and all the things that won't irritate your stomach. So that's what this is. But it's going to go over. We have some tofu. So I'll tell you. So the tofu,
Good catch.
you can use a iron skillet. One of those black iron. It's really good to use your iron skillet as much as possible. Thank you. And you can use that. But what I did was I baked the tofu in the oven. So you want to just bake it. But before you bake the tofu, you want to marinate. So, you can marinate your tofu and bake it in the oven at 375 for about 30 minutes or until it's brown the way you would like it. And then there you have it. Okay, so now we're ready. It's nicely incorporated. And I'm going to now add this to the pan. This is up a little too fast. Okay, yep, see it. I'll just turn it down just a little bit. And what I'll do, so that it doesn't really fry, I'll add a little bit of water. Because this is going to thicken up anyway. Yeah. So, yeah, it's going to evaporate. And it's getting a little thicker. So as it's getting thicker, that's when you want to add a little bit of your water. It's getting thicker and thicker.
How many people will you be able to feed with this mixture? 4? Your
No,
family?
probably more, about 6 to 8 maybe. Okay.
This is going to go over the vegetables.
It's going to go over the vegetables. Now, I already have some marinated sauce from when I marinated the tofu, which is going to be added to this. Okay, so we're going to add the remaining of I'm smelling the ginger. And if you want your sauce to be sweeter, you just add honey. You can add maple syrup. Yeah. Can you all smell any of this? No?
I can smell something.
You can smell something? I'm
I
smelling
think
the
the
ginger.
garlic.
The garlic, I'm smelling the combination of the ginger and the
Smell the
garlic.
ginger.
Can you open up the honey, please? So we're gonna add a little bit of honey to this. I wish I had my whisk. I forgot to bring it over. Well, yes, fork, but I don't want it to mess up the paint. Okay, so we're gonna add a little bit of honey to this. And I tend to eyeball a little bit, but you can add about a tablespoon, maybe 2 tablespoons, or however sweet you would like. And also, I believe that's the soy, but not the soy, but the liquid bragged amino. I have here.
But how long would it take you to make the sauce? You know,
Typically, the sauce is just a 1, 2, and a 3. Sauce is done. But right now, I'm altering. I'm doing a little bit of a. No, not show and tell. I am showing you, but
about 20 minutes.
no, actually about 10 minutes actually.
Folks, that's just put in.
And how long does it take?
Just pour in.
Oh, this is the liquid amino, like the brags. Okay, so I'm not really liking this consistency too much. So if you don't like it and it's not as thick as you would like it to be, you just add a little bit more starch. Bag, pink, purple, put it somewhere. Finger. Not.
What'd you say?
Thank you so much. Now, I need you to really say you're gonna like add, you don't ever really want to add flour to your mixture because then it lumps up. So just, I'm gonna switch. I want you to add that but mix it. Or you can just take this and drink perhaps some water. All right, so we're just gonna let that go down on low. And you just toy around with it. Play around with the consistency that you like. Thank you. Perfect. Noodles are noodles. It's been a long time since we've had noodles and noodles. Okay. So the sauce is here. Have you ever? How many of you are familiar with like duck sauce? Or have you ever heard of duck sauce? You know, that's kind of the consistency of what this is. It's kind of like that. So you can toy around with this and get it to your liking. I tend to go and add a little bit of the marinated sauce in here, but it's okay. We already kind of have some sauce back there. So anyway, this is how you make your Asian sauce. And of course, you can use any starch that you want, cornstarch, arrowroot, or this tapioca. Thank you. And now, one thing you want to be careful of is the fact that as you let it cool, it will thicken. So if you want it just right, you want to add a little bit more water so that when it cools, it will be perfect for you. You know, you understand what I mean? Yep. So at this time, I'm going to put this down. I add a little bit more because it's going to thicken. Okay, I did add them. Okay. So I'm going to turn this off because it's going to thicken as it sits. So it's kind of like an Asian duck sauce. Say duck, but you know, but it will change consistency as it sits. So we have for you, this is going to go over tofu and the vegetables and things of that sort, so you can kind of get a flavor. Excuse me one moment. Okay, so that's your Asian sauce. So while they're getting that together, that is your healthier Asian bowl recipe, and that will conclude today's demo. We're behind time, but anybody have any questions about anything? Yes, ma'am.
I have a question that's not exactly beautiful stuff that you have showed us, but it's the proverbial pot of bland beans. You put your olive oil or something good. You put your onions, you put your garlic, you put your leek in there, your salt, and at the end of the day, it's still bland. Is there any kind of seasoning that is totally good, totally healthy that you can add to that? I mean,
You're talking about beans?
yeah, I'm talking about beans.
Do you soak your beans? Do you soak your beans?
Yes.
Okay, wonderful. So when you soak them, sometimes I use, you can use, depending on what it is, depending on what bean, because, not every seasoning works, for each bean. Like what I would season for lentils, I wouldn't season for navy beans. They're light, different, earthy flavors. So, you can use your soy sauce, Bragg's. You can add in garlic powder. You said you have your garlic. You said you have your garlics, your regular garlics, your onions. You want to add more herbs. Your herbs really is what's going to help season it. Your thymes, your basils, your oreganos, your bay leaf. That's another savory one, and that's where you get your flavors.
But as far as things, the seasoning package you get in the store, like whether it's George Washington or whatever, that stuff you kind of want to steer clear of. I'm gathering.
Which, say one more time?
Like the George Washington seasoning packets for soups and stews and stuff. That kind of stuff you kind of want to steer clear of, I gather.
Yeah, you try as much as possible to use herbs. And I'm finding out, that I have to be careful of Bragg's. I'm finding out. I don't know. I have to do my research because I didn't know. But I'm hearing that Bragg's may have MSA. What do they call it? MSG. I didn't know that. I did not know that. So now I have to, once you learn, you have to kind of discard and learn a new way, of a healthier way. And that's really why I believe that this is a progressive type of thing, because we learn new things and we see what is being added to foods and we discard them and we just, so onward, upward battle, right?
So she said the other day that she uses garlic powder for cancer. I do the same with onion powder. I think that you can have a nice big onion, but you don't throw that onion powder in the onion stuff come out. So that's how I do with my kids. Onion powder, garlic powder,
Yep.
garlic, the whole onion.
Yep, if I'm using the onion, I'm using the powder. If I'm using the garlic, I'm using the powder as well.
And I'd say her homemade butter.
Thank you.
To a large, right now, that's okay butter. To me, that's all I have. That's my butter.
I don't have to do it.
Yeah, she does a big jar of salsa. That's a real slice. And there, when I make great Northern beans, I like the flavor of summer savory.
Yes.
So on the bay leaf, Billy Lindbergher told me that it was not bad.
The tofu.
It's not bad for you. It's not bad for you to pretty much eat any.
My mom always said you could just bay leaf, but it has to come out of the food you cannot. So really, the baby?
I haven't heard that one before.
I've always heard of
Does anyone else know anything about that?
but it has to come out. I've always heard that you cannot.
Does anybody else know?
I have heard both, and I know people that have eaten them and they're still walking around today.
Yeah.
They're not good, and they're kind of crusty even when they've soaked. And so they're, as far as digestion, I wouldn't want to eat one.
Do everybody have a fork? You do have forks, okay. So yes, so you just kind of have to, I don't know, I have to.
I pick them out before I serve because I've had people actually eat them.
Typically, that's what I do. I just use it as a savory, as a flavoring enhancer. And then when I'm serving soup, we take it and discard it. Once it's done its part, you know. But that's typically what you want to do with your soups. You want to use, you know, like, let food is one of these weeks we're going to talk about food being our medicine. And, you know, we get that through the things like herbs and vegetables and fruits and how we can use that as medication. Not medication, but medicine. Same thing, but so.
Oh, that is really yummy. Very nice.
Yes, she is my happy joy girl. So, does anybody else have any other questions or anything they would like to mention? Yes.
In your vanilla, do you use real vanilla or do you use imitation vanilla?
I use imitation. This particular vanilla imitation does not have the alcohol in it. I'm supposing that's maybe where you're going towards that question. I know some people tend to say that it burns out in the heat, but I don't want it in my food. So I tend to gravitate getting it without the alcohol. Does that answer your question?
You can buy pure vanilla in the Mexican food section of the store. That's all the lot in the purpose. In the regular section. And they don't have extract, they have pure vanilla.
Okay.
That's just what I think.
But does it have alcohol?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, the supermercados are two places to get the,
Oh,
Yeah.
so where's it called?
well, it's Mexican, but it's called supermercados.
Shelbyville.
supermarket.
Where is that located?
It's when you show.
Okay.
So really nice.
Okay. See, this is why we have to come together, because we have to help one another, right? Wonderful, wonderful. Well,
You have a fork?
can you give the bag? There are no forks left. Oh, first. Oh, right here. Okay. Well, and of course you can add your sesame seeds. I left mine at home. I apologize. because I'm all about presentation. I think that if your food looks good, then you can eat it. You know, and then if you can eat it, say that one more time.
Presentation is 60%.
Yes, your food has to look presentable, you know.
Saliva glands kick in.
Yes.
So this is just regular tofu. I've never eaten it before in my life.
That's tofu, plain tofu.
Next burger, it always looks like a giant chunk of lard to me. Giant chunk of lard. I didn't know.
You know, you can actually make tofu out of any bean. Yeah, wonderful. I'm glad you enjoy it.
Isn't it curd?
Curry.
Isn't it curd?
Curd.
So-
Oh, yes. You can, and we have a book over there called 10 Talents, and it demos step by step how to make your own tofu. You can use lentils. You can have lentil tofu. You can have any bean tofu. You can do it all. So I will be experimenting. I have never made it before, but I intend on doing that. So, well, I know we have gone past. I don't want to hold you all too much longer. We are having a couple more things again this week for baked goods or sell. We also have a couple of books that you all can purchase, and they are recipe book, plant-based books, and we'll have that ready for you all shortly. Yes.
I see. You mentioned earlier that you have a channel where it's online. Where is it being broadcast, or is it going to be online after the fact?
It's online right now.
It's live now, and then it records, it's on our ministry page, Change by Me Holding Ministry. If you type it in Google, it'll come up in like YouTube and Facebook and other different places as well. But yeah, on those platforms. It'll be on Facebook or YouTube. It'll say about Holding Ministry.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah, no problem. All right. Is there any other questions?
Yeah, the seasoning on the tofu is just the same seasoning you use for the gravy, not the.
It is a little different. It's the same season, but very different. So if you're interested, it's okay. If you're interested in that, I can also add that to it. It's just, yeah.
Cause it's really good.
I just marinated it in olive oil. I mean, I'll give you a portion size and all of that information, but this is olive oil, lemon juice. Instead of the apple cider vinegar, you use lemon in its place, and garlic. And I did use Bragg's. And so you use that, the amount that you're supposed to use. You just let it sit in for about an hour, but I let mine kind of a couple of hours just marinate a little bit so that tofu can have some flavor.
You go ahead and cut it up into small pieces.
Yes, I cut them up prior to. You can cut them up prior to marinate. Just cube it, dice it.
Is there any way I can persuade you to give us the recipe for the butter any earlier than?
I can give it to you right now if you want to. I mean, yes, I can give it to you right now.
Because there are a lot of people who use that instead of waiting to the end of the course.
Right. Oh, yeah, no, we were
Yes.
going to get it to you before the end, but we can get it today if you'd like to.
Yeah, you can get it today.
Just get a copy, flash a copy. Make copies.
Yes, it's and you want to, as much as possible. Be encouraged to make, as you learn healthier options, to be alternatives to implement them. That's really how we.
Would you get me one? You have just that one recipe written down there. I'll just make copies of it.
Yeah, it don't look good. Let's write it down.
Okay.
We'll write it. We're gonna write it down.
Okay.
One you want, Cliff?
No, I didn't have any.
Camera.
Okay. So we're gonna go ahead and close out. I just wanted to hold this book up. I don't know if anyone's ever seen this before, but this is a recipe book by Joanne Racker, and she has been on 3ABN. She's been around for a long time.
Your next- Are you going to have this here next?
I can, yes, I can have it next week. I have them now. I have them now. They're only $3. So, have them purchased. But there's a lot of recipes in here. There's over, I don't know, 200 or something. It's a lot of recipes in here if you want to try some simple recipes. So I want to encourage this. All right.
Any other questions? That being said, we're gonna go ahead and close out with a word of prayer, all right? Father in heaven, we thank you so much for the opportunity to come together in fellowship. Once again, as we learn about health, dear Lord, about your desire for us, or again, it's your desire that we may be in health, that we may prosper. Be with us, Lord, as we leave this place, have your presence, and grant us safe travel verses till we meet again, we ask. In Jesus' name we pray.
Amen. And I just want to say thank you to my helpers today.
Yeah.
We had to start this event, and we have trying to hide back there. And my children, my daughter, and I'm just so grateful because can you imagine me trying to do this and run back and forth? It's not happening. So I just want to really, again, it takes a village and it takes a whole family. Everybody has a part to play in doing the work. So thank you.
Thank you.
And thank you all.
Thank you.
You can do it.
Thank
Yeah.
you, guys, too.
You can do it.
God bless.
Oh, run back and forth like that? No, I can't. He said I can do it.
Instead of